what am I? Officially, I am the Senior Director of National Youth Programs for San Diego Promise. I write curriculum for about 24,000 schools across the nation. I've been in college access and college counseling for 30 years now. I've been an admissions officer. I specialize in college admissions for first generation college students, meaning you will be the first in your families to go to college, or first generation, your older siblings could have gone. And I have served on admissions committees across the nation. I have also advised admissions departments on how to best serve and find and work with first generation students. I work primarily with Asian Americans, but not exclusively. I also work with the Black community pretty deeply. So that's who I am, fancy and on paper. I have an undergraduate degree from Vassar College, and I have a master's degree from USC. That's who I am. Like, that's my fancy resume. I grew up super poor. I'm a food bank kid. My parents, I was raised mostly by my grandparents because my parents worked all the time. I never saw them. And I was raised by grandparents that had third grade educations. However, everything that I needed to be able to survive, I also went to Yale. Everything I needed to survive in fancy schools, I learned from my grandparents who could not read and write in either English or in Japanese. They sort of taught themselves. They were pretty good autodidacts. They learned how to do things by themselves. But they were migrant workers. My father was also a migrant worker. He's a survivor of the internment camps of World War II that you probably studied in APUSH. And my mother grew up in Japantown, and I'm a fifth generation Japanese American. I do speak Japanese only because I'm the central translator for most of my family. Okay, so vastly different, right? What I just gave you, if you want to get into top 3% schools, you got to be this smooth, and you have to be able to tell your story. Let me show you how I could have made that story better. I'm a food bank kid. I gave myself a moniker. It tells you a lot about how I was raised without telling you a lot. I am a food bank kid, 6 words, and it tells you all kinds of things. If I just came up here and said, hi, my name is Sally Matsuishi, and I graduated from Vassar, and I graduated from USC and Yale, that sounds fancy, but none of those facts would have gotten me into school. What's wrong with Asian Americans? Who here, raise your hand if you heard about this kid who's suing like 15 schools because he didn't get in. Everybody's heard of this guy, right? And he's got straight A's, right? Or he's got a 4 point something because of grade bump for APs and honors, and he did some coding thing. He got a Google job, right? That makes a ton of money, but he didn't get into 15 schools. You want to know why? He's not that interesting. He's not that interesting. I will see, and I do admissions at a top 3% school, I will see literally thousands of him. High grades at an school, coding for what purpose? An entitlement. Oozing on the floor, back up, it's going to get on your shoes. So much entitlement, so much belief that if I did check these boxes, I deserve a place somewhere. No one owes you anything. No admissions committee is like, oh my God, he did well in high school. Do you know how many kids have a 4.0? All the major 3% schools and above, and that's like, I think there's only one you see in the 3% zone right now. But like his shirt, right? How many of those schools could take 100% of their kids with straight A's, perfect scores, and extracurriculars that somebody did over 20 hours a week for? We could fill out our entire class like that. It's called topping out. Harvard topped out 1 year. They did this thing that they were going to just top out. They were only going to take perfect scores, perfect grades, over 20 hours, and guess what happened? Can anybody in here guess what happened when they did that? They got their freshman class. They got them all in. They published it widely that they had done this. By the way, most schools in the top 3% can do this 2 or 3 times over. They have that many applicants like that. What do you think happened? Brave soul, I appreciate it. What do you think happened?
Like no one that's like has a story came in. It's just like the same type of people with the same thing.
Yeah, and then what happens when you get all those people in one room?
They all think they're the best. They have no story to tell.
And what happens to them?
I don't know.
Mental illness shot through the roof. They all went nuts. Suicidality shot through the roof. None of their clubs were very interesting. They couldn't get the classrooms were all the same. They couldn't get anybody to come up with the big idea. Schools are not looking for these people. You know what the sweet spot is? 3.8, 3.9 GPAs, unweighted. Super great letters of recommendations. Letters of recommendations where the teacher is like, oh, this kid is awesome, and can talk about an inside joke, and can talk about what your character's like. If you look at the letter of recommendation that I have to fill out for the Common App, right, it has a grid, and on the grid it has all of these questions. Very few of them have to do with academics. They all have to do with respect afforded by faculty. Do other teachers like this kid? Intellectual curiosity. Does this kid study just because they want to get an A? Or does this kid study because they want to know something? Right? Respect afforded by peers. Does everybody hate this kid? Is this the kid in the class that just like talks over everybody and says something stupid? Right? Ability to contribute and change minds. That's a new one that came recently. By the way, welcome to the Stanford form of lecture. They always do it in views like this. Either that or they have these tables that have things that pull out. There's an education research that said this is the best way to teach one another. If you can think about what I'm talking about, can you see why? Why would this be better than standard lecture? You might feel it when you first came in here. It's because you have to look at each other. And it requires more of me. I can't statically sit in one place. It forces me to be a better teacher, and it forces you to be more engaged. Because you have to look at each other, right? If you're in lines like this, you don't have to look at one another. You can keep tabs on one another. And I, as a teacher, can gauge your reactions to things. Okay, so back to the nutty people at Harvard. All right, so they're all at Harvard. They all went nuts. And not only did they go nuts, but the quality of the classes went down because exactly your thing. Nobody had a story, and no one could tell it, which is an interesting problem. Okay, so what did they decide to do? Everybody backed up. Because these schools are not looking for a coder. Do you notice like all of San Francisco, like if you go to San Francisco Center, we were there yesterday, all the stores are closed. You walk downtown, all the stores are closed, all the stores are leaving. There's a record number of people who've left San Francisco. Do you know who they were? Who were they? Who left? It's your city. Coders. They used to get paid a ton of money, and they were the tech boom and the tech bros that all lived here. They all lived in the marina, you know, and they were all making $250,000 a year as coders. In the last 5 years, they've laid off almost 100,000. Why? Because you can buy them in Mexico. You can buy them in Brazil. You can get them in Argentina. You can get them in developing. There's a huge bunch of them in India and Vietnam, right? So they don't need coders anymore. So what are these schools looking for? If you're interested in computer science, please don't apply to UC Berkeley and say, I'm interested in coding. Because it shows two things. You haven't read a single piece of news. You don't know anything about the coding industry, right? About what's going on there. So like when you start writing things down, when you write things down on paper, know that someone's actually reading it and actually taking it seriously. So as much as you can, be that serious when you put it down on a piece of paper. Okay, so let's go back to the guy. What's the guy's name? Should we call him out? What's the guy who is suing everybody? Because he thinks it's because he's Asian. Okay, no one knows his name? Look up what his name is. I hope I can find this dude. Anyway, all right. So this dude thinks because he's got high grades and because he did this coding thing. And now he's got this next piece of proof that he says that because he got offered this job at Google. Yes, Google wants people who have that skill. They're looking for somebody who has a specific skill. You do not have to have a discussion. You do not have to be live in a dorm with any of the people. You do not have to be a part of the community. You don't have to do any of those things. So yeah, it works. But if you want, what's his name? Stanley Jones. That's the perfect name for that dude. That's the perfect name for that dude. Okay, so Stanley. Let's talk about Stanley. So Stanley, it works for them. Does it work to get into an upper level school? No, not that interesting. He didn't even actually have to have as high grade as he did. So what could Stanley have done? What did Stanley, because now everybody's like freaked out, right? Oh my God. If Stanley didn't get in, how would I ever get in? You know, whoa, and deep consternation, right? And also the belief that it's racism. Don't get me wrong, racism is deep. Racism exists. Racism is real. I'm never going to say that it isn't. And I'm never going to say that people of color in this nation have not taken that and turned that into fuel and created the change in this nation for which we are known for. And even given privileges to other people, primarily people who are white passing, given them those privileges were given by white people. Mainly affirmative action. Affirmative action, the thing that everybody's trying to get rid of, mainly benefited white women, not okay, so it was fought and won by people of color, mostly women of color, but it did not benefit them as much as it did. So back to Stanley. So Stanley believes that Stanley didn't get into college because Stanley is Asian and it's unfair against Asians. Okay, I want to push back on two ideas because I read a lot of this in applications. Asian American applications that I have read, and I have probably read deep into the 10,000s, are across the board, when I read them, pretty terrible. They're exactly the same. You can't tell one from the other, and they may both be great stories, but I can't tell one from the other. You all do the same things, you're in the same clubs, you did the same things in those clubs. And by the way, if I've been reading for a good 10, 15 years, I know every high school and everything. So if you're in that Lowell UCSF thing, where you are an intern at UCSF and you carry around samples, know that there are thousands of kids that have put that stuff on it. And you know what I can say pretty clearly in all these years I've been reading that? I think maybe 2 or 3 kids had that internship and actually got a letter of recommendation from a doctor or created a program that existed in a year after or had some sort of substantial impact on UCSF. They did something in a new language. They created a wellness program that was centered on women of color. They did something. Most people did nothing. Most people in their extracurriculars do jack shit. And I can smell it like that. Mostly because, one, I've read it 1,000 times. There's a Stanford thing with fruit flies. I read that a lot.
Like draw the field.
Yeah. I read that one. There's something too about like doing events where you direct traffic in Chinatown. I read that one a lot. There's one where people go to Costa Rica or go to a foreign country to do something, and I'm not ever sure what that impact is. So here's the secret. I'm not saying that you have to go and get the cure for cancer. But you know there is kids that do that. They're at UCSF Medical Center, right? There are high school students. But there are thousands of openings of places where you could go to college, right? So what your job is, if you're a junior, raise your hand if you're a junior. This is the spring of your junior year. Here, you might want to write this down because I'm going to explain to you what you need now. If you don't have 2 or better 4 teachers from your school that can write letters of recommendation for you that reflect the following, you have an inside joke with them, right? 2, that they've seen you struggle. One of the questions is how do you overcome adversity or a challenge, right? A teacher who can write to that is great. What is your contribution to the class and how has it had an impact on others? That's a huge one, right? And 4, how have you had one of your assignments, have you done that was different? Did you bring something new to it? Okay, that last one does bug me. That last one, you know who does really well in that last one? Kids who have parents who went to college, right? David and I were hanging out yesterday, 2 days ago, and he has an assignment on Antigone. And I took Yale's Great Books class, where we read all the classic books, and then I had a section on that. I read Antigone for an entire, we went through all 6 weeks of the course, but we used it as a exemplifier of gender and lensing and patriarchy. So if David was my kid, which he's not, right? And we were sitting at home and making dinner, and David is sitting at my table, and he's like, hey mom, I have this thing on Antigone and I really don't get it. I can sit there for, I don't know, a half an hour and explain Antigone to him. And explain lensing, and explain gender, and explain patriarchy. And I can use my Yale education to help him make his paper better. All over, you know, and I didn't have to pay, well, I had to pay for the education, but I'm not paying $180 for a tutor per day. I just happen to be at home, right? So that's the difference, right? There is this thing of how, where privilege plays a role, okay? And that bugs me. That bugs me very deeply, because you can't get that, right? I didn't have that. Wasn't gonna ask my grandmother, who, while a lovely human being, and helped me and cut fruit and sat next to me and patted me on my back when I was studying for exams, she couldn't help me with anything, right? She couldn't help me with my AP classes. She couldn't explain Antigone to me. She could explain how to get from one place to the other, how to sacrifice everything you ever thought you ever owned in order to get something that no one of you had ever known that you had. And quite frankly, that's probably more valuable than Antigone, but it doesn't have to help me with the Antigone paper, right? Okay, so your role is you need to find that trusted adult and that teacher in the next 4 to 6 weeks that can write that letter of recommendation, who becomes that person who can talk to you about things and for whom you get context from. If you don't have that trusted adult, if you don't have that person in a teacher, then you should try and find it in somewhere else. Either come to a program like this, make relationships with people like me or Malcolm or Jen, or you can go to CYC, and there's other places where you can find that person. But you need to find that person, right? Okay, so letters of recommendation. You're gonna have the best chance of getting into college if you apply early decision. Early decision, if you basically have to turn your things in by November. Because you have to ask for letters of recommendation 4 to 6 weeks before the application is due, this means that you have to have that letter, you have to tell your writer, your recommender, pretty much, I like to always say Halloween. So if you get there in September, you basically have 6 weeks to get everything done. So you need to get your recommenders now. So whoever those teachers are, the 4 teachers, by the way, have to be academic teachers. You can't, unless you're applying to art school or music school, it can't be an art teacher or like your speech person or your band director. It has to be academic. And it's strongest if it comes one from humanities and one from STEM. So that's your strongest bet. Now, if you don't have that, the world has not ended. You can do other people, and people get in all the time that way. And what's most important is that they can actually write a letter of recommendation for you. So here's the big scary thing. Okay, so when I used to teach high school, I was an A-push teacher a very, very long time ago. And A-push teachers get asked a lot, and AP English teachers get asked a lot to write letters of recommendation. So I could easily think that like 50 kids would ask me for a letter of recommendation. I take my letters of recommendation very seriously. Like I spend a long time. If you're my student, I start, and I like you. I have to like you. I will start a file with you early in the year, and as you say things in class, or as I see you doing things in class, I will take notes during the year in a Google Doc, in a Google spreadsheet. And then if you ask me, or even better, I will say at the end of the year, hey, if you need a letter of recommendation, let me write for you. That's the best thing, when you don't have to ask, somebody offers. And then I will go back and I will look at all my notes and I will construct a letter of recommendation recommendation. They're usually about, I like 500 words. As somebody who had to read a lot of them on the other side, I'm very aware that you don't want to go too long. They're very specific. I will quote you things you've said in there. I will take excerpts from papers you have written to exemplify your level of academic rigor. And I will talk about who you are as a person with great detail. So, this being said, if there's somebody who asks me for a letter of rec and I can't do that, I won't accept. I won't accept. And don't make anybody, so this is the worst part. People come to you like, will you write me a letter of rec? And this kid has said nothing in my class all year, right? I don't even know. Sometimes I've had people who ask me for letters of rec for Ivy League schools, and I don't even know, like, they never said one thing in my class. They wouldn't have gotten an A if they'd never said anything in my class, but you know. But oftentimes I get asked because I have relationships with admissions committees. But if you ask me and I can't, don't make me do it, because it won't be as good, because you know I'm writing 49 others, right? Probably to the same schools you're applying to. So be careful who you ask. Always ask with this sentence: would it be okay if I asked you for a letter of recommendation? Not, will you write with me? It's hard for somebody when you ask them the other way, because here's two things that can happen, and they're both in your benefit. I can say, hey man, I would love to write for you, but am I your best choice? Is there somebody maybe, or I can say, hey, I know that Mr. Bream loves you. I mean, he would be great to write for you. Have you approached him, or can I help you talk to him, and maybe he can write better for you? Don't make me write for you. And even worse yet, I've had kids who's like, well, I don't really know him, and then I'm stuck, right? Because in my mind, I don't really know you, but you seem to think you know me. Oftentimes also it's because we're both Asian, which is very painful. And then they'll say to me, can you just do it? Can you just write it? Because I don't have anybody else. So then I'm stuck, right? I either write the letter, shitty letter. I mean, I won't say bad stuff about you. I will never, like, I won't throw shade on a kid. That's me. But if, let's say they're applying to Stanford, right? I'm going to keep bringing up Stanford because you're wearing a shirt. And then I'm going to diversify. So if I'm writing Stanford and I write one and it's got all these details and quotations and stuff about a project you did and stuff I know that you did out of school and about your character and your relationship to your community and your insight into your identity and times in which you inspired me and things in which I saw you inspire others. And then I got to write another one, and all I can say is this kid got an A- in my class and had good attendance, right? And then those both go into the same admissions committee. That actually hindered you instead of helped you, right? So don't ask somebody. If you don't have it, don't ask for it. Asian Americans do this. This is a really huge problem. Letters of recommendation suck a lot. You either asked the wrong person or you weren't it. Right? You didn't show up in class. You did the work, but you never raised your hand. You did the project, you turned it in, but you didn't do that extra weird thing. Right? You half-assed it in some way, or you did so much, but then didn't present it well. That's another crazy thing I see a lot, right? Huge presentations, and kids that read it like this, and I can't hear them what they're saying, and they read right off the thing, and then they go and they sit down. There's a reason why it's the top 3%, because they're looking for the top 3%. Now, here's the thing. People are like, oh, we're Asian, we're quiet. Who here's ever been at a Chinese restaurant? Are we quiet? No. Absolutely not. Who's been in New Year's late at night after when all the aunties and uncles are playing mahjong and you're I don't know, what was happening in my house? A lot of Mario Kart and Uno. It's a very loud thing. Be that loud. Jump in both feet, have an opinion, even if it's wrong. You're like, oh, I don't want to raise my hand, I don't want to seem like a tryhard. Okay, don't go. I don't want that kid. I don't want the kid who cares about some asshole who's sitting next to him in class might like snicker at what they say. I don't want that kid. I want the kid who's brave. I want the kid that goes out and does something new. I want the kid that says something unusual, takes the risk, does something strange. I'm looking for that kid. I'm not looking for the kid who's just trying to check the boxes. Asian American applications are very, very checkboxy. And they're the same activities, they do the same thing. and they fail consistently in the same place. What is the measured impact of your efforts? So, what's your extracurricular activity?
I do piano.
Okay.
Volunteering. I don't know if that
Where do you volunteer?
Library.
Okay, the Chinatown Library?
No,
Yeah.
in Sunset.
In the Sunset. Sunset is the busiest library in the entire San Francisco library system. It has more things going in and out of it than any other library. It also has more programming than any other library. It also has more bilingual programming than any other library, including the Chinatown Library and Hunters Point. Okay, so if you apply to me, right, and I'm reading your application and you write about the library, I know a lot about that branch, right? By the way, they use people like me to do some review. I will fill people in, so whoever the reader is for San Francisco Bay Area, we know quite a bit about San Francisco Bay Area, we know quite a bit about schools. For some schools, we've had teachers who've written letters of recommendations for us for decades, and we know different teachers in those areas, we know different events. Sometimes we've been to them, which is sort of interesting. Okay, so I don't know you at all, and I'm not gonna pick on you, so don't worry. But piano and volunteering at the library. Okay, so this is the two things I would be looking for that. Who does she play the piano with? Who does she play the piano for? What is her favorite piece of music? Why? What is the piece of music that she is afraid of? What is the piece of music that gives her a piece of solace that isn't popular, that she would never play in a concert, but that she loves dearly? How has her playing piano had an effect on others? Is it solo? It's okay if it's only for you, but then it has to be only about for you. But if you're playing for others, do you just go to the recitals? Are you teaching someone else to play? When you go to parties, do you play? Right? So I would want to know all those things about the piano. And then about volunteering at the library. I want to know, what do you do? How many people you see? How have you, being a volunteer at the Sunset branch of the library, changed the library? Have you brought in new programming? Is there something different that you're doing? Do people come just to see you? Have you thought of an idea that brings more people in the library? Or have you thought of an idea that just keeps the people who are in the library engaged in the library? When you walk in, how does the library change? If you can answer me all of those questions and you have a 3.8 GPA and you can articulate your story, that's a pretty winning combination. Okay, so at this point, I want to open it up to questions. Does everybody get what I'm talking about with letters of recommendation? So you should be asking those recommenders within the next month. You should secure those recommendations. So you ask, hey, I'm thinking of applying early decision to college in the fall. They're gonna say, oh, you're really early. And you say, yeah, I am really early. I just kind of want to get ready for it. And then for the next couple weeks or whatever, you're going to start talking to them, you're going to go to their office hours, you're going to tell them about your summer plans, and then over the summer, you're going to shoot them emails, you're going to ask them questions, you're going to ask them advice. You're going to show them your college list, and you're going to keep them involved in this process. The more involved they are in the process, the better the letter they can write. Okay? Now, if you do not already have a relationship like this and it seems weird, just dip a toe. Go into office hours, ask a question. Show them something, ask them advice. Teachers didn't take the low salary in a shitty time in a weird administration just to not talk to students. They love it when you come in and talk to them. If there's a line, wait the line. If you're worried that you won't get in within that period of time, ask before at the end of class and say, hey, I'm gonna come to your office hours. If there's a line and I'm not able to see you, is there some other time we can meet? Okay? All right, does anybody have any questions? I'm going very quickly because I only have an hour. No? If I were you, if you want to be smart, throw out your extracurriculars or throw out questions about teachers right now, and I will tell you whether or not that's a good thing to be doing or not. Smart boy.
I just had a question about how you talk to your teachers without making it seem like you're just trying to get something out of them.
You are trying to get something out of them.
But is there a way to make it mitigate
Ask
that
for
feeling?
advice. Say, hey, are you a first generation college student?
Oh no.
No, your parents went to college? Okay. What don't you know?
Everything about the college process, I guess.
Okay. Where did your parents go to college?
Mom UC Berkeley, dad somewhere in Massachusetts.
Somewhere in Massachusetts, okay. You can start by saying, what are you interested in?
No clue.
Okay. What are your extracurriculars?
Native American club, some like computer science club.
Are you indigenous?
Tiny bit.
Tiny bit?
Yeah.
Are you registered with a nation in the United States?
I don't know.
Okay. You should find that out. You can't count yourself as indigenous unless you have a registration with a nation. And if you are registered with a nation, there's a lot of support for you through financial aid and also just with college admissions and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I can.
I talked to the people about that stuff.
Oh, okay. So you should work on that because you need to have your registration number before you apply to school. There is in the indigenous population is more active in the East Bay, and there's something. There is a college access group in the East Bay for indigenous people, but they're all registered. So if you have registration in that, what nation are you from? Or are you thinking?
I'd have to ask my dad.
Okay. It's going to be rough for you to go into that community because those are hardcore,
Yeah.
right? And they've grown up and they have res records and stuff like that. But okay, so I wouldn't. There's some people that have a certain amount of indigeneity. Which a lot of us do. I mean, I do, but I never did it because that's not my realm, and that's and I'm gonna. And like my grandfather spoke Hawaiian, but I grew up on the mainland, and I grew up predominantly ethnically Japanese, so I don't do the indigeneity thing. Only because in retrospect, when you put in 2 applications, right, somebody's going to talk all about their lives as indigenous, and then you're going to have yours, and it's going to go one up against one, and you're going to lose. So it's not in your benefit. Some people think, oh, there are not very many indigenous students, and so I do that. It will backfire in a way that you will never see coming. But let's go back to how you talk to teachers. So I like it when kids come in and say, hey, I'm really thinking about college. I don't know how to do it at all. I'm interested in these things. You don't do majors. That's too deep and weird, and the amount of people who change their majors in college is so high. Just do what you're interested in, right? Also, if you're like, oh, my mom told me to be an engineer, you're gonna get hit by the kids who want to be an engineer since, they were walking. So, oh, that's another thing. Please don't ever say, my mom told me to do something. I'm not looking for the kid who's there because their mom told them. So you go in and you say, hey, I'm interested in these 4 or 5 colleges. You just show them. Do you know anything about them? Do you know anything about if you go into your computer science teacher and be like, hey, I'm looking at Amherst, I'm looking at Tufts, I'm looking at Stanford, and and just say, I'm looking at this intersection. You never want to say one thing because it's not enough. You don't want to go into a teacher and say, I want to go to college for biology, because every single college has biology, right? You could say, I'm going to school biology, I'm interested in healthcare, I'm interested in healthcare for women. So I'm looking for a school that has gender studies and things and research with women and biology. That helps them. Plus you look much like, otherwise you won't end up at the right school, right? You don't want to be at UC Berkeley if you're doing women's healthcare. You want to be at UC San Diego. They just have way more, and there's much more research, and there's much more money there. And they also have twice as many programs in women's health and UC San Diego. So I would go in, do your research, go in early and ask the questions and get their advice at first. And once you get this relationship of advice, then what normally happens if they like you, then they'll be able to say, oh, okay, this is where it's interesting, right? This is where we could go, and this is where I could write for you for a letter of recommendation. You should go to your school's websites and look where your teachers went to college. It is helpful when you get somebody from that college to write you a letter of recommendation from that college. So that's how I would start. And it's pretty normal to see that. I think in office hours, kids come in and just hang out. There's also talk about the book you're doing. Have a thought. I love it when kids come in and have thoughts. Let me think about thoughts. What was the last thoughts we had? I don't know, where we just hang out and talk about stuff. That's the smart kid. And then I have tons of stuff to write about. This is an excellent question. Anybody else, other people had hands up? Yes.
You know,
You can.
Alright, I wanna talk about my extracurriculars. Like
Okay.
I think I have good extracurriculars, but I've been doing like the same extracurriculars for 3 years,
Good.
so I don't have like a lot of them.
No, I love few deep.
So like, I was in the program called MyEve, so I started as an intern, and I went to like a counselor in training, and I went to a project coordinator,
Okay.
where I am right now. But I don't know how to like articulate it into my college essays. Like,
What does it do? What do you do?
So we create curriculums for like my CITs.
What's that? I don't know what a CIT.
It's like counselors in training, so each district has like a certain CIT, and they like help first gen immigrants or income students, like I don't know, and like talk about financial literacy, maybe start their resume, start their cover letters and anything.
Okay.
So we make these like workshops to like teach them about it.
How many kids over how many years?
So it depends. In the summer, like there's like 300 per
Nice.
district, and then they have CITs, and then right now I'm a PC, so I have 30 CITs, and
Mhm.
under those 30 CITs, like 30 interns for each 3 CITs.
Nice. Okay, how's the program different because you're in it?
I feel like I create like an environment which is like easily, like I'm not like, when I facilitate my workshops, I don't just give slides. Like
Mhm.
my curriculum, I'm like a kinesthetic learner, so I do like more hands-on activities.
Nice.
To teach them and stuff like that.
I'm down for it.
So I don't know how like, cause you said
I need
ask
a little bit more.
a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay, if you're kinesthetic, right? Can you teach yours completely different? Can you do universal design learning? Can you like change up how you do it and then spread it to the other counselors? So if you're doing things on like big pieces of paper where you can map different kids' ideas on one piece of paper and then you do it in your class, can you then take that theory and then train other counselors to do it as well?
Yeah.
That's better. I have to be able to measure your impact on a program, meaning how is that, so 5 years before you got there, 5 years after you got there, how's it different you haven't been there? That's the question we always ask ourselves. So, do you get it? So wherever you are now, take it to that next level, not just the steps that are given in the program, do something cool. And I would find somebody like me or somebody else who can just sit with you and figure that out. I would find somebody at your school who eventually will be your recommender, like your psych teacher, your English teacher, or whatever teacher that you like, and you say, hey, I'm working at this program, I'm doing this thing, what do you think? That answers his question, right? But it's really good that you have all those things, but if you want to go to that top 3%, vis-a-vis your shirt, you're gonna need that, what we call the 10-year. How was it before, how was it since he's been there, and 5 years after, will it be different? You have a question.
Yeah, how can I enhance my credibility for an extracurricular that I did?
Give me an example.
Okay, so so from where my dad's from, they have a nonprofit organization where they help people in the town
Mhm.
for like with food, and especially during Ramadan, we help provide like food to break their fast, and I
Mhm.
help build like a website, social media to spread the information, and like to build donations and get the news out. So how can I like enhance that credibility? Because I'm not sure if I can get somebody from there to to make it
Oh, I see.
credible.
Yeah. Where is it?
In Pakistan.
Oh, okay, that's great. Okay. So, things like websites, social media, crowdsourcing, funding, those sorts of things, there is so much bullshit that, yours doesn't sound like that, but there's so much bullshit that you would be amazed how many kids have started nonprofits that are nothing, that have done crowdsourcing, raising awareness. And I can smell that pretty far. I can tell by yours because it's actually a village you're from, right? Is it in multiple languages? Are you doing the in
It's
Urdu?
in 14 languages.
Okay. And how much money have you raised?
We've raised, so I don't know like the conversion, but I think it's around like 100,000.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And you are the sole person that made the website and the social media?
Yeah.
Nice.
From their end, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I do like that. Is there somebody that you work with in Pakistan?
So I work with my uncles,
Okay.
and they essentially are like my connection to the.
And they send you
Yeah,
stuff?
they send me stuff, and like they're telling me, okay, can you build this? Can you do this? And then I just do it through them.
Okay. Yeah, I do like it. You're saying there's no org that could vouch for you because it's,
That's what I mean.
yeah. I don't care. I'm gonna say the same thing that I said to him. 5 years before, what was the village like? Since you've been doing this, what is it? Is it better now? And 5 years from now, what do you project the impact? And the way you can project impact is how much has changed since you started, and then you can predict it. But that's interesting. I do like that. I also like that it's a family. I also like it's in multiple languages. I also like, are you working with Pakistani American communities here to raise this money and to get the word out?
I wouldn't say, I mean, it's more like, no, I wouldn't say.
Okay, I would make that the next step, because my next question that would come to mind is, who's looking at this website and what communities was she able to access it in the United States?
I mean, I do get like my family friends to do it, like I spread the news to them,
Yeah.
and then but I wouldn't count, I know what you mean, like.
Yeah, like if I just went to, what would be great was like, there's a Pakistani market in my town. If I walked in there, I'd be like, do you know this website? And they did, that's bomb. Right? That's what I'm looking for. Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
How do you ask a popular teacher at your school for a letter of rec when everyone wants to ask him?
Start early, have your ducks in a row, and tell your story. You're like one of the few first-gen low-income kids at your high school. He should want to champion you, and make it clear that you need that help, that you don't have the other things. And then there's a big one where you ask for support and help. It's like, hey, I'm first-gen, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm getting help, I'm gonna try and do this, but, if you could help me out and write this letter, that'd be great. Who are you asking?
Adrian?
Okay, so, the letters are great.
From Adrian?
I've read them.
But he's like really, really popular.
Yeah, but he's really good. He writes a ton of them, but yet they're all really good. And I've read many side by side, and he makes them different. And also, UHS does a concerted effort. The college counselors work with different teachers to make sure that they don't double up, so they will read all the letters before they all go out. So that's the benefit. Well, you don't pay it, but that's the benefit of a $70,000 high school education, right? They won't.
Yeah.
So for those of you who go to private schools, they coordinate the letters of recommendation, and they read all of them before they go out. So you don't get ones that go out, or you don't get ones that cancel each other out. Benefit, and again, it's a privilege that many of you don't have, and that sucks. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
So right now in summer, like I'm not sure like what to, well, I know what I'm gonna do already, but I don't know what to do better to get into like UCLA or something better, like a better school. Cause I'm doing this travel program called Global Glimpse, and then I'm also doing this program in Berkeley, like UC Berkeley. It's called like Summer Springboard, and I'm learning about like pre-med.
Yeah, Summer Springboard, they have those at Stanford. They have them all over the country. Some of them are for pay, some of them are free. They bring a lot of kids. They're nice, but again, how are you going to be different than every other kid that's in that program? And you gotta assume that a lot of kids go through that. So wherever you are, make sure that you have done something different and you bring in a different mindset towards it. The idea is that I want to get into a better UC. UC system is under fire in a really major way right now. The executive orders that went out in the last 30 days are going to really affect UC system schools. There are literally $1 billion or more at stake, and that they're going to have loss in funding, and because they're going to dismantle the Department of Education, which is responsible for Pell Grants, which is the federal money that goes out to low-income students across the nation. I realize everybody in this room will apply to UC schools, right? You're going to use it as a backup. If you're smart, you'll get yourself into private schools that have $1 trillion endowments that can ride out 4 years. You're going to go into, I mean, Trump just took $400 million from Columbia yesterday. It doesn't matter to Columbia. If Trump takes $400 million from UCs are gonna fold. Okay, so make sure that you're safekeeping your education and knowing what's available and how much money you can have. At this point, more money is going out in financial aid to low-income income students through private schools than public schools. It will be cheaper for you. If your parents make less than $120,000 a year, it most likely will be cheaper for you to go to private schools than it will be for you to go to public schools because of the threshold for aid and the elimination of Pell. So, you know, have some planning in and around there. If you're trying to jump, like, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to go to Davis, I want to go to UCLA, so I will do these things. Admissions at those schools are so giant and so amorphous and so based on different admissions criteria. It's you go to one program to other programs aren't. You just, so, what you write about it does, how you present it does. My argument to you is if you have the grades and scores to go to UCLA, I would be applying to top, well, UCLA dropped in the rankings, but I would be looking at, look at top 10% private schools, because they're gonna have more opportunity, more money, and it will matter what you do. Okay, so I wanna bring up some people in the last 15 minutes of the junior thing. Can I asked three, you, and where's Jason? Okay, so you guys stand, oh, you wanna stay seated, or why are you over there?
There's no seats.
Okay, these three were in my bamboo project last year, meaning that they are currently seniors, and they're gonna awkwardly stand somewhere. Can you tell me the world that you come from? Where did you come from?
Yeah.
Where are you standing?
I'll just have this.
I'll go over here. I'm gonna take this. Okay, so what's the world that you come from?
I can start.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jackie Law.
This is his building, by the way.
Yeah, this
He
is
lives
my
upstairs.
building, but my, I guess, kind of more professional title would be like, oh, I got into Stanford early. I'm going to be attending next year. And the world I come from, I'm a first-generation low-income student. I was also a food bank kid. I grew up in SRO housing. I recently moved down here, and now I host a lot of college workshops for helping other juniors with their college applications, because I got that same support at youth programs like CCDC, which gave me access to Sally, and now I want to give that same access to you guys.
Hey, hi, I'm Kathy. My pronouns are she, her. I am an immigrant. I immigrated here to the Tenderloin when I was 5, and I would often ride the bus between the Tenderloin and Salesforce Tower, and I would see, you know, how much wealth the city has, but I was like not allowed any of that wealth. And I grew up in a house where I had to share a bunk bed, a twin-size bunk bed with my mom. And now I've been working a lot with like low-income youth of color within my school to help them get into college. So if you're from Avid, you know, I got a lot of Avid students to be with Sally during our process, and that's why I wanted to bring y'all juniors with this program as well.
Where did you get into school and how much money did you get?
I got into Yale and I got a lot of money.
Hi, I'm Jason. I got into Tufts University. Also got a lot of money. Like everybody else here, I'm a first generation, low income, also a food bank kid, also an SRO kid. So I also have to share a cramped 8 by 10 foot room with my parents, and I had to share the bathroom and the kitchen with the rest of my building. And
Can I ask you stuff? Okay, let me ask you stuff. So I should say that they got guaranteed financial aid over $95,000 for each year for 4 years. Okay, so there's no such thing as a full ride, 100%. They always have you pay. They like to have you pay about, if you're, the most amount you will ever have to pay at the greatest amount of financial aid is about $1,600. Because they figure you have to have some skin in the game, and you could make that working 2 weeks full time during the summer. And oftentimes that is the amount of an award from an independent scholarship, so people get that paid. You will never get it 100% paid. By the way, that's not money you owe. That is usually your personal expenses. So you don't owe that to the school, but that's how much you would spend on pizza and shampoo and a coat and, I don't know, stuff. But all of them got that. All of them got over $95,000. Some of them got over $97,000. Okay, so what is the one thing that you wish you knew as a junior that you didn't know?
Yeah, I guess I could take this one. I wish like I knew that you don't really have to like follow what your friends do and like go into 10 different extracurriculars just because you feel like FOMO or you feel left out. It's generally better to choose something that you really love. For example, your program, I really loved hearing about it, but it's something that like means a lot to you, and it's usually what you're gonna write about in your essays. If you just joined 10 different extracurriculars because all of your friends are in it and you had no impact, you did nothing there, you have nothing to write about, as opposed to someone who just did one thing and put like their heart and soul and gave it their all, and they have a lot of setbacks, a lot of like things that they had to go through to get to where they are, and they have impact, they have a lot to talk about.
I agree. I was actually gonna say that, like, don't follow the herd and like do what everyone else is doing. Cause I know, like, when I was starting high school, I thought like, oh, I need to join CYC, I need to join CPA, I need to join all of these programs. But honestly, like, I just found what I liked doing and I kept with it. And I also like thought back to my roots, like, if I could help my mom translate or like help my mom do this, like, how can I make this a wider scale thing, you know? And I feel like it's really good to start thinking about stuff like that. I also think like y'all should explore San Francisco a little more. Also explore the world. I know like I didn't think study abroad was possible for me because like we didn't have the financial means to do so. But I went through this program which like gave me full aid to travel abroad, and I feel like that experience really broadened my global perspective. And yeah, there's so much free stuff in San Francisco, so I think y'all should definitely explore a little more.
So when I was in junior year, I didn't really think about applying to privates. It was mainly just UCs and CSUs. So I thought I was gonna be $40,000 in debt by the time I graduated college. But you should really know that privates, they have like all this money to give you. So definitely apply to privates, especially if you're low income, because they will give you more than the UCs will give you. So yeah, you should get that back.
Yeah, and apply early. Yeah, applying early is really good.
What else should I ask you? What advice would you give? What mistakes did you make that you don't want them to make? I can think of 3 right off the top of my head that are specific to this field.
I wasn't gonna apply like to any privates until I met Sally, because I thought like someone like me could never go to somewhere like Yale or Harvard. And I was actually just gonna like stick to the UCs, but I think like if it's possible for, you know, people in Pack Heights to do so, why can't I do it? You know? And so I kept that mentality in my head, like, why not me? Like, if they could do it, why not me? So I think that's like my one piece of advice. Like, continue telling yourself, like, you can defy those standards, and why not you?
That's great.
I guess for me, it's I never thought I was actually in like the 3%. I never thought like my story was that special. But like when you're like a fish in the water, you can't really see the water, right? So some advice I would give you is like you're a lot more. You have more of a story to share than you think you do. And for some people, it takes a longer time to like figure it out. But usually, there's going to be someone who shows you that you are that 3%, that you guys will achieve something, and you guys have a great story to share.
Don't just do school extracurriculars. Like robotics is nice and all, but you should really be out in your community. Because make sure you have like an impact, like you could write about your impact, because when you're doing your college application essays, you're gonna have something to write about. You can write about what you did in your community. And so it's a lot easier if you have those extracurriculars than if it was just at school.
Jason had a great one. He worked at the food bank, but his, a lot of kids work at the food bank, right? But his was pretty great because he talked about he knows how to settle arguments between Chinese aunties who have been waiting in line. He knows how to get the right culturally specific things to the right people. He knows how and why they stand in line and how to put little stools out. That makes that story come alive to me, and I love it. Okay, thank you. That was really good, David. Here are the things from these specific 3 people that why I hate them. Why do I hate Jackie? Jackie will text me at 11:30 at night for a question that does not have to be asked at 11 o'clock at night. What do I ask? I always text back, are you dying? And you're like, no. I'm like, go away, right? Do not text your recommenders or your people who are helping you at 11:30 in the morning. You may be having anxiety at 11 o'clock at night, 2 in the morning. Don't share the anxiety. Talk to me about the anxiety the next day. Do not. I keep daring you to say the things, right? Remember when I used to say, you're not boring, but you're boring on this piece of paper, right? Incredible stories, incredible things to say, but somehow when her hands hit the keys and she started writing, it was boring. You're not boring, never work, right? Didn't I say that a lot? Okay. And then Jason on the end there, we did your child's application like hours before it was due, correct?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's not, don't do that. That's not good. It just happened to come out hours before, and it just happens to come out because he intrinsically thinks like a writer. He can tell the story and give the details that are really good. So it was easier for me to get him there, but unless you're that kid, you're not gonna get there. So start ahead of time. Your UC applications, all of you will do them. You know, there's the eight questions you have to choose for. Read them now so you know what they're looking for. So you don't get to, it says, oh, tell me about a creative side, and you're telling me about you like to draw in middle school. You can't write about wanting to draw in middle school. The biggest problem that I see with kids is they get to doing the UCs, they look at the essays and they don't have anything to say. And so they have to stretch one thing multiple times. It doesn't work well. So you have time now, a little bit of time left to be able to actually go out and see the world. To Kathy's point, museums are free for you. The Muni is free for you. You live in the 4th most popular destination in the world. People come. I have been in the desert in Cairo, and I was sitting in actually urban Cairo, sitting there, and a little boy came up and ran up to me, asked me where I was from. I said I was from San Francisco, and he said Golden Gate Bridge, and like, what? Right? If that kid in Cairo knows that, or I've also been in like, I was in a Chinese restaurant in Athens because I missed rice, and a little girl wanted to show me, she had a scrapbook of all these things of San Francisco because one day she wanted to go. Been all over the world, right? Cambodia, people have asked me, are there any Cambodian restaurants in San Francisco? So everybody wants to come here. You're here. Be here. Go to things. See things, look at art, listen to music. If you want to go to Stanford, one of the questions is tell me about a performance, a presentation, an exhibit you've been to that had a particular impact on you and why. If you haven't been to any, what are you going to write about? Also, you don't do it just to go to college. You do it because it's fun. It's more interesting. The world is much more vibrant when you engage it. If you're home playing video games, I don't have anything against video games. I actually like some video games. But if you're home playing video games for more than an hour, if you're playing video games for more than 5 hours a week, that's lame. The world is sitting outside, and you're sitting at home. The kid in Cairo wants to see the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a little girl in Athens got a scrapbook of all the places she could be. She wants to go when she one day gets to go to San Francisco, and you're home playing video games. There's this guy at Stanford, because he wore the shirt. I'm going to tell you a Stanford story. There was a researcher at Stanford who did all this research on video games. And are they harmful? Do they make you more violent? Will turn you into a school shooter was the big thing they were trying to do, right? Same with Dr. Zimbardo, look him up. He also did the Prison Project, which was highly controversial, but also interesting. But anyway, Dr. Zimbardo recently died. He discovered this about video games. Didn't make anybody more violent. If you were on the sociopath scale, yes, it could be. But for the gross majority of people, it didn't make them more violent. It didn't do anything, but it did do one thing. It took their time, right? So if you spent 2 hours playing video games and somebody else spent 2 hours wandering around Golden Gate Park on a bicycle with his friends, or if you spent 2 hours in a museum, or you spent 2 hours reading a book, if you spent 2 hours on Zoom with your uncles trying to figure out what to put on a website, if you figured out how to do different forms of learning in a counseling program that you're already in and you got 5 of your friends to go and do that, great. If you took 5 hours and started a blog on how to find the best boba in San Francisco that nobody has known about, or you go and eat every single croissant in every single bakery in San Francisco and determine that Aristoco is indeed not the best bakery. You learned all those skills. You talked to all those people. You hung out with all those friends. You made all those inside jokes. You learned how to have conversations. Maybe you learned how to flirt. Maybe you fell in love. Maybe you fell out of love. Maybe you discovered something you didn't know before. Maybe you met someone like me and you started in a program. All of those things happened while somebody else was playing video games. So there's nothing wrong with video games. You just missed it. You're not interested. Also, some kids want to go into gaming. If you love video games, go into gaming. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But you know what happens when most people ask them about gaming? What's your favorite game? They'll name a game. I'm like, who created it? Who's the engineers? What corporation did it? What's their next release date? Who was their designer? How is it different? Can I compare and contrast that to 3 other games? They got nothing. So indeed, you might have liked gaming. You didn't actually. You just played games. So I'm going to ask the questions. It's my job. People are like, oh my God, she's so scary. She's so scary. This is what it's going to be like. I don't have it. I don't whatever. You're in the room. You're in this room. Other people aren't. So already you're part of that 3%. The fact that you figured out, I don't know how you even found out about this, but you figured it out and you got your ass in here on the spring forward day, which I almost missed, and you got in here, put your hoodie on, got on the uni, came in here and sat in this room, you're already that person. So if you have doubts, you shouldn't. Now, this is the end of this session. Here's my things. Go get your letters of recommendation. Make sure you go get those people. Make sure that take their advice. Don't do a lot of things. Do a few things. Do them well. Think about that 10-year plan. How is it different? Whatever I'm doing, how's it different that I was here, and how's it different afterwards? I'm very curious about this thing. When you do this thing with your uncles, do you do it over Zoom or how can you?
I've done it in person and Zoom.
You go to Pakistan.
Yeah, because my family's from there, so yeah, I've visited a couple.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Oh,
It's expensive to go, right? I've never been. I've always wanted to go.
It takes a lot.
It's a lot of effort, but like no more than like, you know, other places.
No time to save up and everything.
Oh yeah, just save up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. I think, but in terms of like identity, and that you go there and you do this, and so you sit there with your uncles and then they give you stuff and you figure it out and you plot it
Yeah,
out.
they just give me a whole bunch of like, help us figure this out. I'm like, okay, I'll do
Okay.
it.
Oh, and I would, so the first, when they ask you or they show you some, what is the words that they use? What do they say?
Sorry, can you repeat?
So when you, okay, you're at the table, right? And they bring
Yeah.
you all the stuff and you sit down and you start figuring it out. When they address you, what do they say to you? Like when they talk to you?
Oh, they just say like beta, which means like daughter.
Uh-huh.
You know, we have like we want to do this event. We want to do iftar, which is like breaking the
Sure.
fast for Ramadan. We want to do it on this day. We want to serve this many people. Can you put that out there and collect that many donations?
Okay.
Through like sources that we
And
have.
this is all in Urdu?
Sorry,
Do you speak Urdu?
I speak Urdu, Punjabi, and
Okay,
yeah.
so but this conversation that you're
It's
starting,
completely in Punjabi.
Okay. That's the first line of your college application essay. I want to know what it sounds like, I want to know what it smells like, I want to know what you're wearing, and I want those first lines in Urdu.
Okay.
That's the first line of your application, because that gets me right into the moment and I know exactly what's happening. To tell me about this website or to tell me about this thing is one thing. I want to be in the how you made it, because that story can be told by nobody other than you, and that's vibrant and terrific. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do now. This is the end of this. They will stick around. You can ask them. I'm going to talk to seniors next, and then I'm going to have a panel that's of different students at different colleges right now that you can ask questions to, and I will have a thing for parents in the end. You don't have to stay for all of it. It's a long ass day. You don't have to do that at all. I will hang out after the last session. When was that?
Oh, after 4 o'clock.
After 4 o'clock, I will hang out here. So if you want to go and give your money to some Chinese people in Chinatown, I like the Double A Bakery pineapple coconut bun. Go give them some money because they lost business after the stabbing. Go over there, give them your money. You can come back and you can actually, I will do profile review. So you can sit in front of me, you can show me your transcript, you can show me your extracurriculars, and I can do exactly what I did sort of with the two of them and help you map it out. And I will stay after to do that. Does anybody, if you want to do that, please sign up somewhere. David, can you make a sign up? Because if it's everybody, that there's too many people and I'll have to open up another session. But if not, if it's just a few, then I will do that. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I end the session? Y'all look a little terrified. Yeah.
You talked about like your programs. Is there like any way we can like join your program or like?
You have to apply.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So there will be an application process. I only choose. It depends on what happens. So we usually have a boot camp over the summer where we'll get all the UCs done, and then we use the UCs. If people want to stay on and continue to work with me, then we do private school applications, and then we do that in the fall. Last year I wanted to have 10 students. I ended up with 27 students. I'm not doing that again, Jason. And but I do select who they are, and I don't do it by who has the most chances. I do it by who has the most need, like has the least amount of cultural capital, or has another something that is an impediment to that. So like, what are examples of that? People have disabilities, people who are queer and trans, people who have significant impediments in terms of their finances of getting to school. I will rank them and I will help the people that have most need. And then everybody else, I will sort of refer out to colleagues of mine. Okay? A great question. Anything else? No? Okay, then I will see just seniors. The rest of you can go and sign up if you want to do a profile review.
Also, feel free to grab some
And they
snacks
eat
on your
cookies.
way out.
They're from my dad. We're in Costco.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I made with my
Still one-on-one.
How do I reach out to you?